Sport24 chief writer Rob Howing joins us in studio this morning to discuss some of the weekend's results and other big stories making the sports headlines. Rob, thank you very much for popping in this morning, and a great weekend on the sporting front. Some real classics for tennis lovers, and of course the Blitzboks also against their big rivals Fiji, and coming out on top there. Let's start with the tennis. The Williams sisters, the first time they faced each other in a Grand Slam, I believe, since 2009 Wimbledon final. Venus rolling back the years, much like Rafa Nadal and Roger Federer have done. We'll chat about that. But yes, the Williams sisters, Serena, of course, the form sister, coming out on top there. What did you think of that match?
Yeah, I think it would have been a massive turn up for the books if Venus had actually won it. Remember, a few years ago, it looked as though Venus was sort of fading quite dramatically from the scene. She's had lots of sort of much reported injury and illness issues, illness that caused a sort of a fatigue syndrome that was quite worrying. And a lot of people thought that Serena would just sort of steamroll her way on in her inimitable style without her sister as a distraction. But Venus seems to be back and then some. Really a sort of a second wind for her, and I think she put up a decent fight at the end of the day. It was straight sets. I always felt that Serena was had the measure of her bigger sister, but I mean, it was a really sort of poignant occasion. I mean, there was you could see the sort of the emotion between the two. As you say, they hadn't played in a Slam final since 2009. Their first Slam meeting goes back as far as 2001. Now, do the maths on that.
Yeah.
16, 17 years. It's an amazing statistic. It shows you just how great those two are. So it really was one for the ages and one for the sort of tennis purists. The scenes afterwards were, as I say, incredibly emotional. And you also got the sense that they're not quite done yet. That there's still a bit more in the tank there. That there is still a lot of women on the circuit who are still, lagging behind, especially Serena, of course. There's this. I think there's still the potential, obviously more in Serena's case than Venus. But I think even somebody like Venus is set for potentially putting up a very decent show at Wimbledon, for instance. We know it's a sort of a favourite tournament of theirs. Wow, doesn't it really sort of set up a tournament like Wimbledon so superbly?
And in the men's final, Rob, Rafa Nadal, after all these years of injury, and Roger Federer also coming back from injury. I mean, for them to have made the Grand Slam final, and then Federer, 35-year-old Roger Federer, to go on and win it, it's also the stuff of fairy tales, just about.
Yeah, it was a testament to the sort of the courage and the absolute devotion to conditioning, I would say, in both instances. Nadal in particular had come through a particularly brutal semi-final, 5 sets, several hours on court. We know that Melbourne's not the most comfortable place in the world to play from a sort of temperature and heat perspective. Roger Federer too, I thought he was absolutely superb. He cut his error rate dramatically, and it made for a glorious final. I mean, I saw the last few games of the final set yesterday, and then watched the whole match again last night, and it really was one for the sporting purist. And if you looked at the number of tweets that came out after the match, you could see how many people were really chuffed, while still saluting the great Rafa Nadal, but very chuffed that Roger Federer had sort of rolled back the clock to make it, Slam number 18. That puts him now four clear of Sampras stroke Nadal. Obviously Sampras long gone, but Nadal's still lurking. But 4 is still a gap to be made up. You don't just roll off 4 slams in a row. And we're talking about players in their sort of 30s. Federer obviously mid-30s. Nadal has got a 3 or 4 years advantage on him in terms of youth, if you like. And the signs look good that Rafa Nadal is right back to where he wants to be. You could see even in defeat that there was a little bit of a satisfied smirk that, I'm back as well. Don't forget that I'm also back. That also puts the cat among the pigeons for Mr. Murray and Mr. Djokovic. We know Djokovic has been sort of stuttering a little bit in the last couple of years. I still think that Andy Murray will come back to be a big contender still for slams in the immediate future. But it was just a massive occasion to celebrate. I mean, really a game for tennis purists the world over to really revel in and enjoy.